to think about what can you do. And today
It happened in a split second. A flash of fury that no one saw coming. The world's calmest tennis player, the woman known for her icy focus and surgical precision, leaned toward the umpire and hissed words that froze the stadium. "You keep doing this, and I swear!" Gasps swept through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in on her face, eyes blazing, lips trembling, composure gone. For a heartbeat, the number one player in the world and wasn't a champion anymore. She was just a human being cracking under pressure. For years, Iga Świątek had been called the Ice Queen. Not for arrogance, but for her serenity. Reporters admired her discipline. Opponents feared her control. She didn't scream, didn't smash rackets, didn't crumble. She was the embodiment of mental strength in a sport that eats emotions alive. That's why the outburst hit so hard. It wasn't just the words. It was the betrayal of an image millions had built around her. The tennis world had crowned her as the model of grace. Now that crown was trembling. Social media lit up within minutes. Did Iga just threaten the umpire? One comment read, "Impossible, that's not her." Others defended her. "She's human. We all break sometimes." But inside the stadium, under the unforgiving lights, there was only silence. The umpire sat rigid, unmoved. Her opponent looked stunned, unsure whether to play on or wait. Świątek turned away, jaw tight, the fire still burning in her chest. In that instant, the sport witnessed something rare. The collapse of perfection. The question that lingered wasn't what she said, but why? What could push someone so famously composed to cross that invisible line between frustration and fury? Because this wasn't a young player losing her cool. This was the world's best at the peak of her powers, suddenly revealing a crack in the armor. A moment so raw, so unguarded, that it made even her biggest critics hesitate. We love champions for their strength, but we connect with them for their weakness. And in that moment, Iga Świątek reminded the world that even the strongest can stumble when the pressure becomes unbearable. What no one knew then was that this single flash of anger would spark a global debate about respect, accountability, and the impossible standards we place on our heroes. Before that outburst, there were signs. Quiet, invisible ones that most people missed. Iga Świątek was walking into that match carrying the kind of pressure that doesn't show on the scoreboard. She wasn't just playing for a win. She was defending her reputation, her image, and a mountain of expectations that had been building since the day she became world number one. From the outside, it looked simple. A confident champion chasing another trophy. But inside her mind, the walls were closing in. Every camera flash, every commentator's prediction, every fan who expected perfection, all of it formed a storm inside her chest. That match was supposed to be another chapter in her legacy of calm domination. The crowd had come to see the Ice Queen freeze her opponent with that same unshakable precision. But from the very first games, something felt different. Her shots were a little too cautious. Her eyes darted toward the umpire more than usual. Small errors began to creep in, and every missed call felt personal. Tennis, unlike any other sport, is a dialogue between the mind and the moment. There's no coach on the sideline, no teammate to absorb your frustration. When things go wrong, you face yourself, alone. And for Iga, that loneliness had started to weigh more than the racket in her hand. People forget that success doesn't silence anxiety, it amplifies it. The more she won, the less room she had to fail. She was no longer just a player, she was a symbol, and symbols aren't supposed to crack. Behind the calm, she was exhausted. Endless tournaments, constant travel, the mental effort to remain perfect. Even her close circle noticed she was quieter, more withdrawn, almost as if she was holding her breath between victories. On the court that day, the tension was visible only in glimpses. A clenched jaw, a sigh that lingered a second too long, the tapping of fingers against the racket handle. Each disputed call chipped away at the thin wall she had built around her emotions. By the second set, her breathing had changed. Short, sharp, mechanical. The commentators called it focus. In truth, it was control slipping away. And yet, she fought it the way she always did. Until the match turned on a single call that she couldn't accept. A ball barely kissing the line, ruled out. That was the moment the storm she'd been holding back finally broke through the calm. It was supposed to be just another match, one more step toward another title. But as the game reached its breaking point, something inside Iga Świątek finally snapped. The moment that had been building for hours, maybe even weeks, erupted in front of millions of eyes. A tight rally ended with a disputed line call. The ball had skimmed the chalk, close enough for the crowd to gasp before the umpire's hand signaled out. Świątek froze mid-stride. Her racket trembled slightly in her grip. For a few seconds she stood there in disbelief, eyes locked on the chair above her. Then slowly she began to walk forward. The crowd fell silent, sensing something they had never seen from her before. When she stopped below the umpire's chair, her voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the arena like thunder. "You keep doing this, and I swear—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The tension said the rest. The umpire's face stayed neutral, but the air cracked open, gasps, whispers, and the electric hum of thousands of phones recording history in real time filled the stadium. Her opponent stood frozen behind the baseline. Commentators hesitated. One finally muttered, "Did she just threaten the umpire?" Another whispered, "Unbelievable." Within minutes, clips of the confrontation flooded social media. Every angle, every frame, every word dissected and replayed. Headlines shouted across the internet, "World number 1 loses control." Świątek's shock outburst rocks tennis. In that instant, everything changed. The woman celebrated for her composure was now trending for losing it. Memes surfaced. Think pieces appeared overnight. Some fans condemned her. That's not leadership. Others defended her. She's under pressure. Let her be human. Back in the locker room, the silence was heavier than any crowd's roar. Świątek sat alone, staring at the floor, her face pale. Her coach tried to speak, but she shook her head. The weight of what she'd said, and what it meant, was sinking in. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about rankings or trophies. She was thinking about damage to her reputation, her image, her identity. What she couldn't have known yet was that this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the spark that would ignite one of the most emotional apologies in modern sports. A moment that would test not her backhand, but her humanity. 2 days later, the cameras were back, but this time the lights felt colder. The press room was silent, filled with journalists waiting for the first words from the woman who had set the sports world on fire. Iga Świątek walked in slowly, her shoulders slightly hunched, her eyes dim but steady. The room that once cheered her victories now held its breath. When she spoke, her voice was soft, fragile, almost breaking. "I want to address what happened," she began. "In the heat of the moment, I said something I should never have said. I let my emotions take over. I made a mistake. For a brief moment, she wasn't the ice queen, the world number 1, or the symbol of mental strength. She was simply human, vulnerable, flawed, and sincere. Her words weren't polished by PR training or filtered through a manager. They sounded raw, real, and that's what made them powerful. Social media, once full of outrage, began to shift. Fans who had condemned her started to empathize. Others remained critical. "She should have been punished," one tweet said. "But at least she owned it," said another. Her fellow players chimed in too. Some applauding her humility, others reminding the world that being number 1 means living under a different light. The debate wasn't about tennis anymore. It was about humanity under pressure. How much imperfection can we forgive in those we idolize? Do we allow our heroes to fail, or do we demand that they remain perfect because we need them to be? Świątek didn't argue for forgiveness. She didn't ask for sympathy. She simply bowed her head and said, "I'll learn from this." And in that humility, she showed a different kind of strength. One that doesn't win trophies, but wins back respect. The story became a mirror for everyone watching. We've all had that one moment we wish we could take back. Words said in anger, choices made under stress. Świątek's breakdown wasn't just hers. It was ours, too. Forgiveness, accountability, redemption. 3 simple words that carry the weight of every human mistake. And maybe that's why her apology mattered more than any victory. It wasn't about tennis anymore. It was about courage. The courage to say, "I was wrong." So now the question is yours. Should a single moment of weakness define a champion's legacy? Or is true greatness found in the ability to face the world, admit your fault, and rise again? If this story made you think, hit like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more untold stories of athletes who remind us that perfection isn't human, but honesty is.